Jim Miller is a retired chemical engineer and has maintained throughout his career a keen interest in energy of all types, and he makes it his business to stay informed. Jim?
Healthcare is very important, and it's on most of our minds right now, but still roaming around in the halls of Congress is cap and trade, and it's pretty dangerous in itself. The House of Representatives narrowly passed the legislation in June by a vote of 216 to 212. 44 Democrats voted against it, 8 Republicans voted for it. Congressman Tom Perriello drank the Kool-Aid and voted for it.
Get rid of him!
The Senate has not yet begun debating the legislation, and I read this week that they are going to postpone a month doing markup on the bill, so indicates that they've got some concerns, namely they don't have the votes. What would this legislation do? It would cap carbon dioxide emissions, allocate allowable emissions, and mandate huge reductions in carbon dioxide emissions over time. For example, it would reduce the 2005 level of emissions by 17% of the, start over on that. It would reduce the 2005 levels by 17% by 2020. It would reduce the 2005 levels of emissions by 83% by the year 2050. Now, putting that on a per capita basis, the CO2 emissions in 2050 would be about the same as they were in colonial times in America when they were burning wood. It would require utilities to generate 20% of their electricity by wind, solar, or geothermal by 2020. For reference, in 2007, just over 1% of our electricity came from those sources. It would modernize the national electricity grid, mandate energy efficiency improvements for buildings, home appliances, and electricity generation, provide $1 billion, peanuts these days, for carbon capture and storage. That was to buy some votes like Rick Boucher in the 9th District in Virginia. Democrats on the Energy and Commerce Committee defeated numerous Republican amendments that would have canceled the act if energy prices exceeded specific thresholds. It would have overruled the EPA on declaring CO2 a pollutant, and would require certification that India and China were also pursuing greenhouse gas reductions. What the legislation is called the American Clean Energy and Security Act of 2009. What it does not do is expand oil and gas exploration, ANWR, their outer continental shelf. It does not expand nuclear power generation capacity. It does not expand the use of our vast coal reserves. It does not support the development of extensive shale oil reserves in the West. What the government is doing is attempting to choose the energy technologies based on ideology rather than letting the marketplace make the choices. What are the predicted impacts of this legislation? Millions of U.S. jobs will be eliminated or moved to other countries such as China or India. China and India are not signing on to these carbon dioxide reductions. One analysis predicts the loss of 2.3 to 2.7 million jobs a year through 2030. A separate analysis in Spain, which has implemented a similar measure, cap and trade measure, reveals that there are 2 jobs lost for every so-called green job created. Yet Congressman Perriello, President Obama, and other Democrats claim the legislation will create 37 million new jobs by 2030. I asked the congressman, I asked the president, the other supporters, show me the money, show me the data that supports that claim that it's going to create 37 million new jobs. Another key impact is that energy costs for all Americans will rise significantly. The Heritage Foundation projects that by 2035, electricity rates will increase by 90%, gasoline prices by 58%, natural gas prices by 55% because of this legislation. And we all know about what the federal debt, the national debt is doing. It increases every day. This legislation would raise the federal debt by almost $20,000 per person. Now, the kicker. What would all of this do? It would reduce the average global temperature by 1/10 degree Fahrenheit by 2050. All this expenditure and the impact of global warming will be almost below the ability to measure it. Does this smell like a tax to you? Why is Congress pursuing this destructive legislation? We can thank Al Gore. All this effort is based on the unproven assumption that humans are causing global warming. So the ultimate goal of these people is eliminating the use of fossil fuels. Make no mistake about that. That is the objective. In fact, the left-wingers are furious because they don't believe this legislation goes far enough in that direction. There are many reputable climate scientists who have shown that human activity is a minor cause at most of global warming. There is an abundant amount of scientific data proving that the Earth has experienced numerous warming and cooling cycles long before humans started generating carbon dioxide. I can provide numerous references if anyone is interested. The Obama EPA declared CO2 to be a pollutant, and therefore it must be controlled. We know carbon dioxide is an essential element or chemical for life on Earth. Humans and animals exhale it, plants need it to grow. You probably read that the EPA hierarchy recently suppressed an internal memo from one of their people questioning the official position. You can imagine he's not very popular these days. My friend Al Gore says the debate is over. I say nonsense. We haven't had the debate. I challenge Gore to come out from under his massive carbon footprint and engage his opponents in a public, fact-based debate on the issue. Now, what can we do? First, we can let our two Virginia senators know how we feel about this legislation. Let's hope they still have open minds. Second, we can express our views through letters to the editors of newspapers, by blogging, and providing factual information to our families, friends, and associates. We should be supporting domestic oil and gas exploration, expansion of nuclear energy, greater use of coal reserves, providing incentives for energy conservation measures, and application of renewable energy sources when economically competitive. And there are some cases where it is true. Third, we can vote for candidates who have taken the time to gather the facts and support efforts to expand and develop our domestic sources of energy. Just a hint, in November 2010, we have an opportunity to change our representation in the 5th District. Are you teed yet? I am.